Yeah, but the most what I'm going with on this is Obi-Wan. So Obi-Wan is the only main character out of any of the things that are considered canon now that speaks with an English accent. Now, Finn, John, God, I'm awful at pronouncing last names. I'm not going to butcher his name, but Finn, the actor, is actually English. He was asked to speak with an American accent, I believe there, but yet Rey, what's her name? Oh, I can't think of her name now.
Her name is Daisy.
Daisy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, so she was told to continue her, speaking in her English accent. So I think there is a reason for that. I think there's a connection, and a lot of people are going to say, "Oh, well, how is that possible?" Obi-Wan, took place in, the prequel trilogy, the original trilogy, died. He was yada yada yada. Okay, I get that, but what people feel to realize is if you watch any of the Clone Wars cartoons, he actually had a relationship, it was almost like Anakin did with Padme, where he was when he was younger. So he had that kind of temptation. There was something there. So there's not to say that maybe there was a slip up, maybe something happened with him and who this person, I don't want to ruin anything if you're going to go out and watch the Clone Wars, I won't spoil that, but the person I speak of, there could have been a slip up, a child there, that child as a child through bloodline, there could have been anything of that there. You have to understand too, though, after the Jedi Order dissolved after episode 3 and he ended up on Tatooine, he created a life for himself. He had to have. I'm sure he probably just didn't sit in the hut by himself all day. I mean, how could you exist for that long? So he had to have done something, He could have found somebody, maybe a fling, a wife, anything. Obviously, wanted to keep that, part of his life, secret, hidden away. He wouldn't want, he wouldn't disclose that to Luke for any reason being in the first 3 movies. I mean, what happens if, he did say that he had a child and, maybe that child was strong within the Force and now, he wouldn't want anyone to know that, especially Vader and the Emperor, so obviously he would do anything he could to keep that child secret. So what I'm getting at here, in a long-winded explanation of it all, is that I think that she is a Kenobi some way, somehow Kenobi. And I think there's an off chance, too, that maybe a Kenobi offspring and Luke had a thing, and maybe that's a product of that, and maybe that's why she's so inclined to be so super sensitive to the Force, because as I was talking to Yoda last night, nobody can just yield the Force the way that she could so easily. So
just so before, sorry, Panda, I don't mean to cut you off.
Or hybrid.
Okay. But I sorry, man, I don't mean to cut you off here. But you did go off and say Yoda, and
my secret identity is Yoda. Yeah. I'm sorry, you just revealed my identity. Huh. I'm not honest. I'm not actually dead. But I want to point out a few things as well with Rey, and kind of going with what you were saying as well with the possibility of her being a Kenobi, which I strongly have said right from kind of near the beginning. And we've discussed this before as well, that when she actually goes through the Luke's lightsaber, who also was Anakin's at one point, and was also held by Obi-Wan while he was on Tatooine all those years that no one knows what happened.
Yeah, exactly. Depends on who you speak to, but it would have been between 18 to 20 years.
Yeah. It called out to her in her own voice, as well as the fact of both Obi-Wan actors spoke. Ewan McGregor and Alec Guinness.
Yeah.
So. Yes. Ironically, there was no Vader, no Luke speaking, which only kind of points to the fact that she is a Kenobi, or it is possibly pointing at the fact that she is actually a Skywalker, and Kenobi is trying to push her to the Force like he did Luke.
This could be true. I want to go into that Force vision a little bit more, because there's a couple of other spots there. I think one thing that I came away from that Force vision is that she possibly might be the only surviving student from Luke was training, that after Kylo Ren went off and turned on him, because of that vision where you see all of the Knights of Ren, together. It kind of gets this, vision, that, maybe this is stuff that she actually remembers and witnesses. There's another line that Kylo Ren brings up, referring to her as being a Jedi a knight, who's trying to sleep. So it's almost like her memories are being suppressed, either by herself or someone has used, the Force to go off and to alter or to suppress her memories. So I think we're going to find out a lot about this, but I do like this theory that Obi-Wan Kenobi, everyone obviously thinks, she's going to be, Luke Skywalker's daughter. But, and there's different things, like, why would, she and Princess Leia go off and embrace when they return from the Starkiller planet? And, but of course, both of them are Force sensitive, and so they could probably feel, a mutual, love that they had for Han Solo on some level.
Yes, and definitely, Luke seemed like he was waiting for Rey for, one reason or another. And ironically, to me, it just seemed really funny that, when Kylo Ren was reading her mind, he actually spoke of an ocean and an island. And that is exactly where she found Luke.
But see, how would she possibly have known that? And that is, the big thing. That was one of those things that's like, well, how did he know about that? Because she wouldn't have known about that. Unless she, saw it in a Force vision. Because she did have that Force vision by that time.
There's a lot of things that seems like they're hinting at that, obviously, like classic George Lucas, did, in the previous. J.J. Abrams is continuing saying the mind F. And, making us question.
Absolutely. So there's, Panda, you brought up a theory, possibly, Luke, of Rey possibly being the daughter of, like, Obi-Wan Kenobi's daughter?
And Skywalker.
Yeah, not so much that Rey would be the daughter of Obi-Wan. I would say
the granddaughter, obviously.
She'd be like a great-granddaughter or something, like
yeah.
that.
So, but, it was interesting. I don't remember where I saw it, but there was a family tree that was created, and a part of this family tree was the speculated idea that Luke found Obi-Wan Kenobi's daughter, and they had a child named Rey. But I want to go back about a couple of generations here, and as we found out in Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, Anakin Skywalker was created by the Force. I refuse to go off and say midichlorians or whatever the hell they're called, because I don't believe in them. I believe, the mystical Force.
Midichlorians was the scourge of, Star Wars.
And J.J. Abrams said that they would never be mentioned again, and they haven't been. But, got fat,
But, see, now, I get that, but and I was talking, if you watch the Clone Wars, toward the end of the run of the series, Yoda actually goes off and he learns how to become the Force Ghost, and actually the first person that became a Force Ghost was Qui-Gon Jinn. And this is obviously all considered canon because it was between Episode 2 and 3. So he goes off and he actually learns how to because Qui-Gon comes to him in a Force vision. The whole council thinks that Yoda's crazy. Actually, at this point, Obi-Wan, they all think he's crazy. So they actually have him on lockdown because they think that it's like a dark side ploy. So they think, he goes off, and finally, eventually, Qui-Gon gets him to go off, convinces him that Qui-Gon is actually Qui-Gon, and they go into explaining how science and the midichlorians and all that stuff, and how that's like actually the actual living force. And then when you die, that's the all, like you were just talking about, the all force, the all natural force. So it's interesting to see how the J.J. Abrams said they'll never be talked about again, but it's kind of interesting if you watch the Clone Wars how they do bring that up, but they're actually able to mix both of the ideas, I guess, together, and it also makes you understand how Yoda was able to become a Force ghost. How, and then Obi-Wan would obviously then have, at some point, Yoda would have taught Obi-Wan how to do it, and so on. So, sorry to interrupt you on that.
Yeah, no worries. But sorry, man. But the reason why I went off and I brought this up was there was a theory, and this is going to kind of take us into our next section here. Is that Darth Plagueis, who is the master of Palpatine, Darth Sidious, went off and created Anakin Skywalker in Smee's womb using, the Force, as mentioned in Revenge of the Sith, by Palpatine himself. Plagueis could go off and can manipulate midichlorians to go off and to create life. And so there is a theory that he went up and created Anakin Skywalker, and Palpatine knew about him.
So wait. Are you telling me that Anakin is Star Wars Jesus?
Well, that's kind of what they were referring to before. I mean, he's kind of like what happens if Jesus was imperfect.
Well, don't they have egg on their face?
No kidding. But the reason, I mean, this kind of transitions us over to the other little...
The big, gigantic question.
The big question.
Who is Snoke?
Yeah, the leader Snoke. And, of course, the first theory, the one that a lot of people have suggested, was that he
is
was...
Yoda.
I'm going to smack you, I swear to God.
It's Yoda. It's a big, gigantic, overgrown Yoda.
But, I don't like that. Anyway, there, of course, the big theory here on this, a lot of people have been talking about, is that it's Plagueis.
And see, the fact that everybody is talking about is why I do not believe it is true.
Yeah, I mean, there's the theory there could only be the master and the apprentice, and so they kind of hinted at that Palpatine would have went off and would have killed him, because that's the only way that he would have been able to take an apprentice. Is, because at some point the apprentice must go off and try to defeat his master, and one or the other must die, and then a new apprentice must be found. And so I can't believe that it would be Plagueis either. Particularly, what I thought was interesting, and this is kind of going down the rabbit hole a little bit, is that at the time that they did this, the Star Wars Expanded Universe was still in place. And in that, on multiple occasions, the Emperor returned as a clone.
Did you just use Star Wars and Marvel in the same sentence?
I lower my head in shame. I'm sorry.
I understand that Disney owns Star Wars and also owns Marvel, therefore they could be confused, but...
And Marvel does Star Wars comics, so therefore...
You are screwed.
There is a connection there, but
yes.
I still lower my head in shame.
Yes.
But, I mean... this could lead to several theories, I guess. I mean, if there's anybody that could possibly have found a way to stay alive, it could be Darth Plagueis, or it could be his apprentice, who some people think might be Snoke. Talk about the former Emperor Palpatine.
Yeah, I haven't personally heard that theory myself of Palpatine, but I think it could be unique. It does technically somewhat have the same voice pattern.
I suppose. I don't know. There's also been...
I'm going to throw that one out. I don't know if I can get behind that one.
Neither can we really. No. It's...
There is only two possible, things that this could be. Three possible. One is Darth Plagueis. Two is Darth Vader, and 3 is Jar Jar Binks.
Okay, sorry, Panda, you should have listened to our show last week.
Oh no, we've discussed this.
Yeah, we did. We discussed it. Oh,
Jar Jar Binks is the greatest Sith Lord of all time.
Okay, so you know what we're talking about then. Okay, but I want to go back. You're talking about Darth Vader, which is kind of an interesting theory. This is a more recent one that we've heard about. they went off and
they're all copycats.
They're all copycats, yes. But someone went off and took a still of Snoke, lighted it up, and they found that his scars are